But first up, this climate and energy policy and the decision announced today to build a gas-fired power station. Do we need to bolster our supplies of dispatchable power in this country? Of course we do. In the Sydney Morning Herald and other Green Left media, they tell you that batteries can do that job, but this is really nonsense. As I've shown you before, the battery plant for a similar output of electricity would cost just as much, but of course it would only last for an hour. 1 hour's power is not much chop when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. 24 dispatchable power, 24-hour dispatchable power is what we need to firm up renewable energy. Now, is it an indictment, do you think, of our energy policy, state and federal actually, Liberal and Labor, that government funds are needed to get these gas generation investments happening? Of course it is. Our renewables push has completely compromised our grid. All the subsidies and incentives have been poured into renewables, making the coal and gas plants unviable and thereby destabilising our grid, imperiling our supplies and pushing up prices. Just look at the blackouts and the brownouts in South Australia and Victoria in recent years. But we are where we are, and government has got to ensure we've got enough power. They've got to plan years ahead and not put our supplies and our costs at risk. So they had to intervene. And they ought to err, of course, on the safe side, on the cautious side. Anyway, just on all of this, let me show you what the global experts are saying about it all. There's a lot of focus over the past couple of days on a new report from the International Energy Agency detailing what would be needed to get the world to net zero by 2050 globally. Of course, a lot of governments, people saying this is what they'll do. Now, this is hailed by the Green Left and the media. They all neglect to mention the important details, though. The report says that half of the reductions to get to net zero by 2050 would have to come from technology we don't have yet, technology currently in demonstration or prototype phases. So you wouldn't want to shut down your other options too soon, would you, when you're waiting to prove up that technology? Now, the International Energy Agency says all this rests on advanced innovation in batteries and in hydrogen and carbon capture and storage. All stuff that's not up to the task now. Yep, so that's one hell of a downside, isn't it? Most of the Green Left politicians and journalists are keen to tell you that the IEA says that to get to net zero, coal and gas have to be phased out. That's the message they want to push. But what they're less inclined to tell you is that there's no guarantee we get enough power without them. And the technology to deliver their dreams of net zero is yet to be invented or at least proven up. So they want us to take them on faith.
Net zero emissions by 2050, what does the mix look like in Australia?
It's a good question, and obviously we'll figure that out as we get closer towards that end target, and that could take 20 or 30 years, as you've pointed out.
In short, who knows? Check with me in 20 or 30 years. Don't worry, it'll be okay. And that opposition to gas-fired electricity, don't take that too seriously either. We will be relying on gas too.
The key thing is how do we balance the system for those remaining hours? And batteries, pumped hydro, hydrogen and natural gas will play a role over the coming decades.
Yep, natural gas is kind of crucial. By the way, just on coal, the International Energy Agency also has publications out on coal generation and demand. They say coal demand will increase 4.5% this year, bouncing back from the pandemic recession. And it says that in China, the world's largest consumer of coal and the largest greenhouse gas emitter in the world by a country mile, the demand is going to continue for coal to continue to rise and go higher than it was in 2014. Therefore, demand for coal, consumption of coal in China is going to go to its highest level ever next year. Just some facts that you seldom hear elsewhere, but facts that say net zero emissions worldwide are a long way away, a lot longer than 2050, I suggest, and also that Australian coal exports won't collapse anytime soon.